I will never forget the sound of my grandfather's cane cracking against the marble floor the night he destroyed my parents in front of 40 guests. One question from him shattered 10 years of silence and ripped open a secret that had been buried since before I even knew it existed. My name is Grace Whitfield. For years, I believed my parents were simply strict people who wanted me to earn my own way. I told myself that lie so many times I almost believed it. Even while I worked 2 jobs and lived in a leaking apartment just to survive. That Christmas Eve started like every other one. My mother's forced smile, my father's booming laugh, a tree decorated like a department store window. Then the doorbell rang and my parents went pale before it even opened. Standing in the snow was my grandfather, Walter Whitfield, a billionaire the family swore had cut ties with us forever. His eyes found me first. "Grace," he whispered, "look at you." And he pulled me into a hug so warm that for the first time ever, I watched my parents look truly terrified. At dinner, he asked me gently across the table, "Are you still living in the house I bought you?" Every fork froze. I blinked at him and asked what house, because I had never owned property in my life. My mother's wine glass slipped. My father's smile collapsed. My grandfather explained he had wired $400,000 3 years earlier for a starter home, and my parents had told him I loved it. I told him the truth, that I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment with a ceiling that leaked every time it rained. He rose from the table, 78 years old but suddenly seeming 10 feet tall, and ordered everyone into the living room. My parents sat across from us shaking as he asked me to describe my life. I told him about the mold, the broken heater, the 2 jobs, the skipped meals. My father muttered that I was exaggerating, and my grandfather silenced him with a single look. Then he pulled out old text messages where my parents thanked him and promised photos of my new home, a home that never existed for me. My father admitted they had planned to buy it eventually, that things got complicated. "Complicated?" my grandfather repeated. "You told me she moved in. You lied to my face." My mother cried that they didn't want me to waste it. My grandfather stood, his cane cracking against the floor, and said I had lived in poverty while they spent my future on themselves. "Tomorrow morning," he told them, 9 sharp, "bring every document, or I will handle this my way." The next morning, he showed up outside my broken-down building himself, staring at the cracked bricks and overflowing dumpster in disbelief. Inside my apartment, he ran his fingers along the peeling paint and asked how I had been living like this. I finally broke, telling him everything I had swallowed for years, the tuition I paid alone, the ceiling I patched myself, the shame I carried thinking I deserved it. He pulled me into his arms and told me I deserved love, not punishment, then said, "Get your things. You are not spending another night here." At the lawyer's office the next day, my parents arrived late, stiff and pale. The lawyer, Jonathan Price, laid out bank statements showing exactly where my $400,000 had gone, a lake house down payment, jewelry, a European vacation, spa retreats, all paid for with money meant to save me. My father shouted that I hadn't earned anything, and I stood up and told him quietly that I had worked myself to exhaustion while he stood on a deck built with my stolen future. Then came the moment that shattered the room completely. Jonathan revealed my grandfather had rewritten his will 2 months earlier, naming me and my aunt as primary beneficiaries, cutting my parents out entirely from an estate worth over $900 million. My father shot up screaming that this was insane, that I hadn't suffered the way they had. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "Yes, I did. And you were the reason." My grandfather calmly explained I would inherit everything because I had something money could never buy. Character, something he had lost long ago. Then came the final blow, a legal notice ordering the full transfer of their lake house into my name within 7 days, or formal fraud charges would follow. My mother sobbed that they were still family. "Family," my grandfather said softly, "is not a shield you hide behind after you've done wrong." A week later, the transfer was signed. The lake house they had bragged about for years, the one bought with my stolen future, was finally mine. Walking through those tall windows and pale oak floors for the first time, I didn't feel triumphant. I cried because I finally understood how much I had survived. 2 months after that, my grandfather's health declined, and I visited him every single day in his care suite. "You are my legacy," he told me once. "Not the company, not the money, you." I promised him I wasn't going anywhere, and I kept that promise until the end. I turned that lake house into a design studio. taking on clients who felt unseen the way I once had. Single mothers, students, people the world overlooked. I started believing for the first time in my life that I deserved a good life, one measured by what I gave the world, not what I cost the people who were supposed to love me.